So today I thought I would show, there's been a couple of questions and things I think on some of the on the glass questions about using glow powder. So this is what I've made this year for Halloween. So it is a hanging cauldron, and as you can see, I've used black here, spring green light coarse fit, and then just across the top of here is glow powder mixed either in with white or clear, because I've mixed it with both. So it's on here. As you can see, it does still show. You end up with this sort of look, but what it does do is it creates a beautiful glow, and you do need to get quite a bit because you're using it against the black. So I'm sort of going to make one of these, but I have made there's no glow powder on this one because it's a Tealight, so I thought that would be enough. And again, just that sort of cauldron sort of effect. So ideas, whenever I get an idea, I often end up, this is when I'm on my stall, I sit and write myself out a list of things to do, and I go, ooh, and then come up with ideas. And then I just transfer them into my book. So I just got just a rough, as you can see, drawing is not my skill, but I just give a bit of a rough idea. It gives me the idea of the size, and these little squiggles here tells me, this is all going to be glass. I try to use to make as little what we call is scrap glass, but it's never scrap, it is always used, as you will see. Because this is a little pot. I've got loads of this. This is just a small little pot of the black, but actually these make great legs. Yeah, corners have taken off things. Great legs for my cauldrons. So everything gets sort of used. I'm just going to turn you very slightly. As you can see, I've got my poppies that I was showing the other week, so I'll be making more of those as we come up to remembrance. Pre-cut ginger dough is always ready. Fabulous colour wheel, love the colour wheel. So this one is going to be, if you hear dogs barking, it's because I've got my dogs and they're sort of like wandering around. This one is going to be, they are about 10 wide by about 9 high. So they're a little bit short and a little bit squat. So I'm going to move it over here because I can't work it out on that bit there. So I'm just going to move it over to here. I'm going to cut it to 10. I'm using a black and clear streaky glass on this one. And then I know there's lots of different ways that people use to, I tend to use running pliers, that's my go-to. And there we go. See that on camera, it's difficult to gauge. I don't have one of those those overhead things, so this is literally just on one of these little stands, and then so we cut from there. I'll just snap that one. So there you go. So I've basically got that sort of shape from there. So if I just sort of go from here, and then on mine, so everything I cut is cut by freehand. So I'm just going to cut a little bit down here. Occasionally I use a pen to mark it out, but these I don't mind if they're completely freehand. Don't mind if each one is a different shape. It all adds to the quirkiness of being handcrafted. And then when I have customers who say, do you make this yourself, I can direct them to my page and my YouTube, and then they can actually see it being happening. So I'm just breaking off all the corners, sort of as you can sort of see here. I'm just going to go and grind the edges around. I'm not going to take it over to the grinder, but I will just go take it over. I'm just going to take this over, just grind these edges around here, round this a little bit off here, and then bring that back. Right, okay, so I ended up, well, I made one video, didn't like it, so I've come back to make it again, this bit. So in the meantime, the first one's in the kiln. These are another couple that I'm making, so I'm sort of making 3 at the moment. So that I can get some of the bits in there. I've got an order I need to get into the kiln too, on this particular firing. So using these sort of pieces in here, These, as I said, make great sort of legs for the cauldron. So putting them on sort of like that, I mean, and when that fires, that's absolutely perfect. This one looks like it's a bit big over here, so I'm just going to cut this one in half roughly, and then I can make it on this one. So everything fits sort of on there. Now, I tend to use a tiny bit of PVA when I'm doing these ones. Don't use it all the time, but just a tiny amount, because there's just a few different elements. I don't want to drop off when I'm carrying them to the kiln. So put those on there. Could use glass tack. I use PVA. I use it a lot in my workshops with all the other people taking part in workshops. So I'll use it a little bit here, and then just place those sort of where I'm happy. Then I'm using springs. I'm just going to move these out of the way a little bit. Move that there. I've got lots of little off-cutty bits and things like this, which I'm sure we've all got. So cut those, and then just start placing these just along the top, so that they look like that. And then these, I'm using the end bits, so these got rolled ends, so they're not the easiest to cut along. Well, I don't find them that easy. You may, if you've got any tips, that'd be great. We're all here to learn. We'll put that one on, that one over there, and then I've got this piece here. That's what I've used for something, and then I'm just going to cut triangles. There's a ridge in that one, right, sort of right there. See, I'm not necessarily doing them all in straight lines. I don't particularly want straight lines for these. I want it to look sort of edgy. I want it to look sort of, you know, like it's just sort of bubbled over. I'm not sure that I like that one though. There's edgy, and then there's just that look, you know, from here. Okay, actually that one can go over there. Put you there. Put you on that end. Find a few more pieces. A little piece there. First bark there was stunning, my little French bulldog. They tend to bark at anything, a leaf, you know, anything that's going by. And other times they just sleep the day away. So I need another small piece sort of there. I think that will work. There we go. So it's just like that. Then what I use, just bring these down a little bit, and then a tiny bit more of the PVA on here. I often do this on paper so I can scoop up the any of the frit that sort of misses easier, but I'm not doing so very many of these today, so that's okay. And then tiny bits of frit across the top, so it just looks like it's bubbling out and over. one there, place that there, use my tweezers just to put a few pieces, so add a bit of texture and context to that bit. Sort of there, push those up a bit. That is it. Then they go into the kiln, and I put those on. They're sort of on slightly higher than a tack fuse. There's a tiny bit there that can go in there as well. My skirt fire is quite cool, so it's on quite a higher temperature. So and then I put it on for a slightly longer hold because I quite like the sort of the softer, more sort of rounded sort of look. Years ago, I mean, I've been doing this, what, 18 years? Years ago when I first started, everything was on tack fuse, loved tack fuse. Then when I had to stop for a couple of years, and when I came back to it, about 4 or 5 years ago, everything then was on a full fuse, and now I'm sort of like just playing around with all sorts, sort of like all or nothing type of girl. Anyway, so I'm going to do those, and then when they are ready to come out the kiln, then they will be attached to a Tealight at the back. So next I'll show you how to do the other cauldron, but in essence it's the same. I've just used a black opal on this, and then ground around the edges, and then I've added the glow powder on the top with a couple of extra little, hooks to hang these ones on.